about all of those little obstacles, and you're like, wow, would I even be able to accomplish all this stuff if I hadn't had to jump through all those hurdles in the process?
I think in a lot of ways, without my upbringing, I'd be handicapped. So I don't think there's anything that will make you more ready for life than having your feet to the fire at an early age. So for me, I'm just super grateful for it. There's no hate in my heart about it either. And I think that even particularly my mother, when she looks at it, I think that she thinks I have hate. I don't, man. I don't at all. I wouldn't change a fucking thing about it. Not at all.
Why do you think it is? As you're saying this, I'm thinking about guys who have been through struggle. And my whole life, I feel like the guys who've kind of been through it a little bit are always much more compelling, much more desirable to women. There's something about having lived through something challenging that makes men in particular very attractive.
There should be a rigidity to men. It's a man's job to have gone through things that make him emotionally strong. A man's job is to be the mountain that a woman's emotional waves crash into. So if she doesn't feel safe around you to be able to take on adversity, then what the fuck does she need you for? She doesn't. She doesn't need you. So you get the opportunity to go through things that make you rigid, that make you hard, that make you scarred. And I think that is the beautiful part about being a man. And I also think it's a beautiful thing about love. Because if I can't protect you from the troubles of the world, then what fulfillment do I get from taking care of you? And some people think that's simpy, but I also think that especially young men, especially men in the red pill space, have a misunderstanding of what it means to be a gentleman, or what it means to be the structure that a woman feels safe inside. Because how can she give herself to you if she's not sure that you can actually take the responsibility of taking care of her and taking care of the situation in all ways, and especially being the emotional leader that's stoic and that's strong, especially in adversity and storms. So you got to be that rock. And so it's hard to be that rock when you've never gone through anything.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's why you need to be so grateful for any adversity you have. And then if you're not having enough adversity, I advise that you go find pain. That way you can be that structure when the time comes, because it's going to hurt you much more to go through pain publicly than go find it privately and be ready when the time arises.
You know, we're going to talk a little bit about what you said in terms of guys being a protector. And I think that's really interesting to get to. I want to start with some of the business stuff first, though. Because you have this super successful construction business, and it started with you really going on. I had heard an interview where you said, I went on I knocked on the door 3 and 4 times, but just somebody would answer it. And you were like building sheds in backyards. So talk a little bit about that, because I think those are the moments that break a lot of people. They have a vision. They want to start a business. It seems overwhelming. They start, and the hurdles in those initial stages, they just say, I can't do this. So how did you get through all that? And what did that look like in the beginning?
You know, there was that whole time where I knocked on the door and got the job. And what I did from there is I went to the bank, and I finally got that job, and I was making more money than I was used to living off of. So I just said, hey, listen, draw 80-90% of this out into another bank account, because I'm just going to go ahead and live off the per diem. I was working in New Orleans, and I needed $10,000. I needed a net worth of $10,000, which I clearly didn't have, to be able to apply for my contractor's license. And in Louisiana, I have a contractor's license. You have to have one to do a contract over $50,000. That's labor and material. So almost immediately, the cost of the building almost gets you there. And then by the time you do labor, so you don't want the state board coming out on you. So I did that. I moved the money to another account. I applied for my residential license, but I ended up going with metal buildings just because I felt it was more niche, and I felt like I could get into commercial construction and kind of pass all the going back and forth with the Karen about paint colors. You know what I'm saying? Like, I built a couple houses. I'm like, fuck this.
What did they do to you? I gotta ask.
It's one of those things where it's like it's uphill. And it's long, and it's over a small profit margin. And I just knew that the business wouldn't be as explosive. I think it would have been a less risky route.
For
but
sure.
There's big money in hanging steel. It's dangerous. There's cranes. There's men 100 feet in the air. If somebody falls, they die. There's money. It's commercial. And your customer understands construction. They understand construction cost. Sally doesn't. She doesn't get it. Not her fault. Wonderful lady. I'd rather work for John, that works for the $100 million contractor that's going to, pay me based off a schedule of values. Hey, this is how much we finished. Building's 100,000 square foot. The contract is at $1 million. I can make real money.
Right.
So I went metal buildings, but to start off, there was a little metal building manufacturing company called Mueller's. They're popular all over the South. I think up in Oklahoma and things like that as well. So building like 30 by 40 sheds, me and like two guys. I'll never forget, I went to this bank. This bank is now closed down, but they were called First American Bank. And I begged them for a line of credit because I had $2,500 payrolls. Oh, wow. And I had to pay my meth heads, because that's what I had back then. I had a bunch of guys that were probably on drugs, and when I say probably, they were on drugs. Mm-hmm. And I was 24. I didn't know what I didn't know. And I was just getting hit left and right. I was getting hit by the customer. I was getting hit by the guy stealing the tools, buying my tools out of the pawn shop, whatever. Yeah. That whole game. So I started off doing backyard buildings. And then I really worked hard at getting big on paper. And what I mean by that is like, I'd like try to get, proposals that made the company look bigger. And I'd really leverage my technicians that had been doing buildings for longer than I'd been alive to try to get man hours close enough to estimate and not completely get wrecked. And I had it going for about a year, and I had a guy walk off a job on me, and I lost 30 grand. Oof. So I had to go get a job for a year and a half.
He just walked off the job.
Yeah, walked off a job off school in New Orleans. And so what happened was they supplemented my contract. Mm-hmm. Which basically means they brought somebody else in. I actually do this now for people, but they brought somebody else in, and whatever it cost those people to finish it, they took it from me out of my contract. Yeah, I know.
That had hurt.
And I'm like 25 at this point, and at that time, losing $30,000 is a huge deal to me. And so, what I would do is I'd wake up 4 a.m, I'd go work out, and I'd get to the office before everybody, and I'd estimate. Because I'm just like, look, I already took the ass whooping. I might as well get up and get my licks in, right? So, because I kind of knew what I was doing, and I built up a backlog of work, and it wasn't even a lot. It was like 500 grand, but I knew it was enough for me to quit and go take a swing at it again. And I put systems in. I worked with eMyth for about a year and a half, mm-hmm. and I really, really put strong systems in where I'd have a spreadsheet where when I got the drawings, I had hired an estimator. But I'd built the sheet so well, I'm like driving from job A to job B, pulling a trailer, and he's like, well, it's this tall, it's this kind of panel, it's this, and I can see the spreadsheet in my head, and I'm like, all right, cool, do this, and send it. And we got to a point where we were sending out 4 or 5 quotes a week. Mm-hmm. I started winning jobs. And it wasn't long after that we hit $1 million, and then we hit 1.2, and then I made some money. And then I lost some money, And so it was this back and forth all the way through my 20s. And then so I'd say somewhere around 31, 32, really started to kind of,
So that's like just a very ambitious mindset from like right away, like young 20s. And what's interesting is I see now a lot of guys don't have that mindset for some reason. Like there's too many guys I see that are just sitting on the couch, they're playing the video games, they're watching the pornography, they're lost, they're lost. For some reason they feel like they can't get it together, or something's going on in society, they feel like society's against them, or whatever it may be, but they don't have that drive. And I believe that if they did find that drive from within themselves, they would be so much happier. How do you find that within yourself? Because